started with poetry. I went on to short stories. And finally, when I felt confident, I started writing novels. And I love all those forms, but I think the novel is really my favorite because it is the most challenging of the forms, at least for me.
Yes.
Because for me, character is always at the heart of my books. And that's what I really try to do. Yes, of course, everything else is also important. You know, the setting is important, the ideas are important. But if the characters don't come alive, I don't feel the book is successful. So I spend a lot of time on humanizing my characters and making them complex, especially, I think, with the Palace of Illusions and Forest of Enchantments, where I was working on the characters of Draupadi and Sita, who are already so amazingly complex. But I wanted to, with them and with the characters, and for example, Mistress of Spices, I wanted to go into the heart of the woman and kind of understand what did she feel, what was she thinking, what did she learn, what did she learn that I can learn from and be inspired by, and my readers also. And I think perhaps that's what people respond to, a complex character that they can reach across countries and ages and, I don't know, different cultures and learn something from, relate to in some way. The Mahabharata, actually, even though it is a very complex, complicated, and much larger text, it was relatively simple because although there are several versions of the Mahabharata, Vyas remains like the main source. And people have deviated a little bit here and there from Vyas, but not so much. So, you know, Vyas was my main source. Kashiram Das in Bengal was my second source with the Bengali Mahabharata.
Right.
And then modern retellings by Raja Gopalachari and Kamala Subramaniam, people like that who are my sources. But with the Ramayana, oh my goodness, there are so many Ramayans. There are like literally 100 Ramayans.
Oh,
And so I had to choose my sources very carefully. Valmiki is my main source. And again, there is the Bengali Kritibasi Ramayana from many centuries back. That
right.
was a major source because, you know, the Bengali versions of the Mahabharata and Ramayana, I grew up hearing them.
Oh,
My mother used to read them to me. So I have a lot of love in my heart for those. And the interesting thing about the Ramayana versions is they're quite different from each other. Even from Vyas to Ramcharit Manas, there is a big, there's a big
yeah.
shift. There are many differences. And it just made me aware of all of the difficulties that women had, and it made me so aware that, you know, I had been so blessed for really no reason of my own. It's not like I was any better than any of the women who were really suffering in difficult positions. It was just luck, and I felt that I really needed to do something for, in whatever way I could, for women who were in such tough situations, and especially for women of our communities who are in these tough situations in this country. It's even harder because they don't have the family support, they don't have that larger social support of friends. They're very alone. So we become, in some ways, their family and friends, these organizations that I'm concerned with. And then I was very interested in educating, and especially educating our girls in India. So that's why I've been so involved with Pratham, because I feel that a lot of these problems that we are seeing later come because the woman has not been given enough education. Not always, sometimes they are educated, those are other kinds of situations. But because when a woman is not properly educated, she often doesn't have independence because she can't have a job, so she doesn't have her own money. she cannot walk out of an abusive situation, especially if she has kids, because where will she go? How will she take care of her kids? I've seen some really difficult situations. So, these two things, working on women's education and giving them support or a place to go or legal help or whatever they need if they're in situations of abuse, that has been important for me. I started, like I said, right from the time I was in college. The meaning of that palace is not only the Maya Mahal, where
Yes.
Draupadi, that will be built for Draupadi, where she finds her sense of home, but actually, Krishna will tell her this entire world, what is it but a palace of illusions?
Yes.
So that is, and that is what Draupadi has to learn through her life, that
Yes.
this entire world, what we think is real, is really not. We are always
Absolutely.
mistaking something because of, I guess, our human nature. We always mistake the nature of reality as something else. And therefore, this is a palace of illusions. And this is, of course, this is a metaphor that is in our ancient texts, our Vedas, and definitely in the Mahabharata as well. The other part, writing about India, it's a very interesting paradox. It is at once more difficult when you live away because you're not in it all the time, but also it is easier because you're able to see it. You know how one has to sometimes back off to get perspective? And I find that not living in India sometimes gives me a perspective. Now, it's very important for me to keep in touch with what's going on in India. And I do that with regular visits. I have relatives, I have long WhatsApp conversations with them, and they tell me, what's going on and how they feel about it. And when I visit, of course, that's very important. Just get a feel of the country, a sense of what's going on, just what's happening. So those are the
Right.
ways in which I keep myself current. And of course, now with the internet, research has become so much easier. I really thank God for
Yes.
that.